One more thing. What's left in free agency? And do the Heat need to make a move soon?
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's up, everybody? Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. We're back for one more thing to talk about today, and we are taking the lay of the land on the free agent market. We talked this morning, David, about where Miami stands in all of the LeBron sweepstakes stuff. So if you want to check that out, get the latest updates on that, check out our episode from this morning. We also talked about what the Heat have already done in free agency, namely adding Tim Hardaway Jr. and bringing back Simone Fontecchio within the opening hours of free agency on Tuesday night. And then we saw Norm Powell leave the Miami Heat and sign a 2-year contract with the Chicago Bulls. So we talked about that as well. But that leaves us with one other thing to talk about, which is what's left here for the Heat. A frenzy of moves in the opening hours of free agency. It's just an absolute whirlwind, David, of signings, of trades. We saw Kawhi Leonard get traded to Toronto. Walker Kessler just signed a massive deal with the Lakers. It's hard to keep up with all of it. So we're going to do it for you here in our little afternoon show. And look, we praised the Heat in our first show today by getting their homework done early. You got Giannis done. You got Hardaway done. You got Fontecchio done. You made your moves. We know where the Heat stand against the cap. They're involved in the LeBron James stuff now, and that is certainly the biggest thing yet to be done here. But you look at what is left and what is left on Miami's roster, and they really don't have a wing creator, a perimeter creator to help A, relieve Giannis and Bam, and B, get Giannis and Bam the ball, right? And so we just saw Quentin Grimes and Colin Sexton sign with the Lakers. A number of other of these sort of primary initiator types. It wasn't a robust market, but a lot of them have moved and have signed and agreed to deals with new teams. So my question to you, David, is what's left? And is it basically LeBron James or bust for Miami?
It certainly feels that way. And I was thinking about it even as we're talking about it. Some of these moves feel more significant, moves for other teams, because those teams were fully formed, right? You're adding a key player, or you're adding even a decent role player to a mix that's already established. But with Miami having given up so much just to land Giannis Antetokounmpo, you're kind of left wondering, oh, well, what's next? You have to add somebody. And yes, there are holes in the roster, but I think you can make that argument for almost every team. Like, no team is perfect, certainly. Look at the New York Knicks, the strongest team in the Eastern Conference, right? And they just lost Mitchell Robinson. So they've got a hole to fill as well. And while all these moves are taking place, Miami's just kind of, as you said, they made their big move. They added Giannis Antetokounmpo. They added Bobby Portis. And now they've added Hardaway and Fontecchio. That's not a bad place to start. So I don't think it's LeBron or bust, but I think it certainly raises the overall offseason grade from, I'd say, a B plus to an A plus. Like, if they can land LeBron James, that fixes a lot of what could be wrong with the team. And I know a lot of fans don't agree. Like, even as we're posting these episodes, and maybe I shouldn't give those voices any credence, but it just feels like they're not believers in what LeBron can do, either because there's still resentment from 2014 or because of concerns regarding his age. Both of which I think should be in the rearview mirror. As far as the Heat are concerned, they're not thinking about that. They're looking at a 6'9" superstar who can still play at a high level, do all the things that Miami needs them to do, and brings championship caliber experience to this roster. So I think LeBron James doesn't necessarily make or break this offseason for Miami, but it would certainly go a long way towards helping them be a much more complete team.
We can make it really basic here in terms of LeBron. If we know that LeBron isn't going to be getting signed to a max contract, the Heat don't have that money to offer him. If LeBron truly is looking for basketball happiness and is willing to take less, then the Miami Heat's best less offer is about $5 million, whatever they have left of the mid-level without going over that hard cap. I'll ask people this. Let's call it $5 million. $5 million, $6 million, whatever it is. You're going to spend that on LeBron or somebody else?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about LeBron on a max contract. And when you kind of look at it that way, it's like, I don't really care how old he is. We're getting him at $5 or $6 million for a year, maybe two. Like, I don't think it's I think it's pretty simple. By the way, the Heat knew that the market was going to look like this for creators, for perimeter creator types. And it's why they wanted to keep Kasparas Sakuchonis out of a Giannis trade as bad as they wanted to, and why it took them until basically the very end to be willing to include him in a trade to Milwaukee. They knew that the market was going to look like this. And they really liked what they got from Kasparas Sakuchonis in his first year, and they thought that this is a guy who was going to be able to play major minutes for them, or maybe even start for them this year on a team with Giannis. And you think about big wings who are playmakers, Kaz is that. And so to try to find that guy is really hard, and that's why I think you look at LeBron as the number one option, because he's a big wing who can create. So you've got that. The other name that's out there, I think, is Anfernee Simons. I think it's kind of interesting that we saw Tim Hardaway Jr. sign, obviously, with Miami, Colin Sexton, Quentin Grimes, all of the like kind of the top guards, Marcus Smart even, the top guards got moved pretty quickly. And now we're starting to see some of these other guards get signed, whether it's, a Bogdan Bogdanovic to Houston or something like that. Simons is still out there, and I don't really know what the deal is. It feels like there should be a lot of interest for a guy who's a knockdown three-point shooter. Limitations, obviously, but you look at the names out there, I don't think these guys are materially better than Anfernee Simons. I do think that there might be a case of Simons just wanting more money than what these teams can offer. But you just saw Simons' previous team, the Bulls, they went for Norm Powell instead of Simons, And we see this every year. One of these guys ends up getting squeezed and having to sign for a lot less than what they planned for. And I wonder if Simons is that guy. So I asked you before, is it LeBron or bust? And I'll now expand the question. Is it LeBron or Simons or bust for Miami?
Yeah, it does feel a lot like a Caleb Martin type situation where he was kind of waiting
call.
and you might have waited just a little bit too long.
Yeah.
I think it would go a long way. Like, if you look at it in the aggregate, you're giving up Jaime, Kalel, Kasparas, Norm, and Tyler, and you're getting back Giannis, Tim Hardaway, and Bobby Portis. Right now, it doesn't feel quite even. There's that glaring hole, I think, at the shooting guard position that needs to be filled. So if you can land a guy like Simons, I think that would go a long way towards helping Miami shore up a big weakness there. And to your point, I think he is a great addition in terms of what he can do and spread the floor. He can put up points for you. He's a very good role player for what this team is looking to do. And I think that's exactly, is it Simons or bust? Again, I think he made the first step, the biggest step, the most important step in getting Giannis Antetokounmpo. Everything after that was gravy. And I think we recognize that even in the first season, it would be a process of trying to rebuild this roster around Giannis so that you can compete immediately. It would be just as much of a contending team as any other in the Eastern Conference. And for the record, I still think they're that. Even without adding Simons or LeBron, I think they're just as good and capable as any of the teams in the Eastern Conference, despite Toronto adding Kawhi Leonard. Even if the Boston Celtics continue to add or tinker around somebody else or even trade Jaylen Brown for somebody else, I still think Miami is as good a team as any of the others in the Eastern Conference. Do they have some weaknesses? Yeah, you can make that point about every team. So I think it would help a lot for Miami, but no, I don't think it necessarily defines this offseason in a negative way. Again, look at where we are now. Like, you have that superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo. You've got arguably the best player in the Eastern Conference playing for your team.
Yep.
Like, nothing else matters. And so, no, it's not bust. It's just maybe not as great as it could be.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't mean like bust as terms of the offseason, just bust in terms of trying to fill this particular need of getting a guy who could be a little bit on the ball on the perimeter. So, look, it's LeBron, Simons, I think, still at the top of the list. There are other names that are still out there. And one name that Heat fans had circled that might not actually be available. We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Every goal pays. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. And that's what makes tournament soccer so exciting. From the opening whistle to the final kick. And now FanDuel, with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals mean more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. If you've been watching the knockout stage, you've seen some really good performances already. France, Mexico, Norway. Who knows what the U.S. men's team can do? They play later on tonight. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon. That should be a fun match as well. But you're looking at some high-powered offenses still in the tournament. And with every goal pays, you can find a way to bet and get benefit from each goal scored. So from the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. We'll be right back.
So what is left for the Miami Heat here in free agency? They have 2 or 3 roster spots still available, even after making the moves that they've already made. We're looking at, obviously, LeBron James being the top priority. If that doesn't work out, what can Miami do to address that need in terms of some perimeter creation? Simons, that's the other guy. Another guy that Heat fans had targeted was Duncan Robinson. Not really the creator type, but, and obviously another guy who could play out there. We're getting reporting out of Detroit that the Pistons aren't going to waive Duncan Robinson, at least not now, that they don't plan on doing that, which makes sense to me. I know that they re-signed Kevin Huerter. Duncan Robinson played over Kevin Huerter all of last season. I understand maybe they want to make some room for cap space or whatever. They can always use Duncan Robinson's salary in terms of trade fodder also. But yeah, I mean, right now it doesn't look like Duncan Robinson is going to be available to Miami. Maybe the Heat don't really need that right now, though, after having signed Tim Hardaway and then drafting and then signing Fontecchio and then drafting Conwell. Like I think that's probably okay, David.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, look, it would have felt good. It's funny how a lot of Heat fans were kind of disappointed at the news that he might not get waived, having forgotten that he was basically run out of town by a large swath of the fan base.
True, you all hated him.
Unhappy. Yeah. I mean, for years, everybody told us, oh, Duncan needs to be traded. What a waste of a contract. He was the worst deal in NBA history, all these kinds of things. And now it's like, oh, please give us Duncan. And it doesn't work that way. I think Duncan's still a valuable player. Like, did he have his glaring weaknesses for this Detroit team? Sure. But I think he would have come to Miami and still been able to add something in terms of familiarity and three-point shooting. And again, another guy who would have accepted his role and been a nice addition alongside Giannis, but not a make it or break it type addition. I think with Fontecchio, you're getting basically a lot of what Duncan would have provided with a similar role. Maybe he won't start the way Duncan would project it to start, but I think between Conwell, Hardaway, and Fontecchio, you do have shooting on the roster already. It would have been nice to get another shooter, but I'm sure you could probably find somebody else, maybe an undrafted free agent or something like that pops in summer league.
Still needing that sort of creator type. Yeah. I have a couple of uninteresting names for you, and then I have a couple of kind of interesting names for you.
Well, I don't you think they need a big as well? Like, I think the wing creator and a big, a veteran big, in my opinion, would go a long way towards helping. Okay.
Yeah, you got to go find these centers are getting paid right now. I think Miami is going to end up looking at the market when it starts to dry up a little bit and just say, all right, which one of you that didn't sign wants the minimum to play in Miami? And so we might end up.
Wagner getting a heck of a lot of money.
Jock Landale was a guy that we talked about. He got $14 million. Yes. So, I mean, we were way off base on that, I guess. I mean, it sounds like that was one of those human trade exception type deals. But, Vucevic got signed going back to Orlando. He would have been interesting on a minimum, but he obviously, prioritized going back to the Orlando Magic. And so he got that. Guards, Anfernee Melton, Bones Hyland, they're out there. Experience with the ball in their hands. Right?
Didn't Melton get re-signed by Golden State?
Did he end up going back, or is he still waiting?
I think he
either way, not interesting to me. Two other names that are like, well, okay. Bradley Beal.
Assuming he gets bought out, right?
I think he's already bought. I think he's waived. Yeah, he's already unrestricted.
Okay.
Russell Westbrook. If you need a guy on the point at that spot who can dribble the ball back and forth and pass it to players on his team, Russell Westbrook can do that.
I just don't think so.
No,
Part of me is curious.
thank God. Yes,
Part of me is curious.
sure.
Could he figure it out? But haven't we been asking that question? And we really haven't
To
seen
me,
it.
it's the shooting is the problem with me with Russ, right? It's okay, like yeah, he can handle the ball, but are we? It's not solving any of those spacing issues that we have either.
And I don't even want to necessarily deal with the Westbrook stands asking him to be in charge of the ball, like he should be the one with the ball in his hands in the waning moments of games. It's like, haven't we seen enough to show that that's
Especially on a
not
team with. It's one thing to do that in Sacramento, and then a
sure?
different thing to do it on a team with Giannis. Yeah, Beal is pretty interesting to me because Beal is a little bit better on the ball than he gets credit for sometimes.
Yeah,
Still a good shooter. There's health concerns, obviously, with him. You have to make sure that those check out before you do anything else. But that's still like even after signing Hardaway, I don't know. It's not exactly the right fit there, but maybe that's Beal obviously has wanted to play in Miami before. The last option for you here, David, and it's less of an option now, but maybe it's an option later. What if the Heat just wait this out? You deal with the LeBron thing. That's what they're doing. You deal with the LeBron thing first, and then everything else you figure out. Because if you get LeBron, then it's a different kind of conversation in terms of team needs. Then you have your guy who's going to run your offense. But either way, they can leave a roster spot or two open until training camp and just wait for all of this stuff to sort out. The league is being shuffled to such a degree right now that it feels like there will be casualties of it, in a sense that we might get other buyouts, teams trying to find ways to create roster spots. Memphis right now, like what the heck is going on with that roster? It's all big men, very few guards. They might have to reshuffle some things and buy some guys out that might be interesting to Miami, right? I'm just naming a name. Would Sacramento eventually just buy out Zach LaVine and just say, you know what, we're just turning the page. We couldn't find a trade partner for LaVine. We're just going to buy him out and we're going to start this rebuild, that way. You start to get to some different kinds of names that aren't currently out there. So I do wonder if ultimately Miami just looks at the way the market is right now and says, we actually don't feel a strong need to make a move that's very major. We can just kind of wait it out and see if there's some better options later on.
Which they've done in the past. They've left that roster spot open. And I think they're still probably making calls and doing their due diligence on finding a team for Nico. Like, I think I'm not reporting that they're trying to trade Jovic, but I think it's certainly an opportunity for them to move him, create a little bit more space, and maybe find a suitable big. Because I think we've already, like, if they're planning on keeping Jovic, he's not a big, no matter how many minutes he's played at that spot. That's just not realistic. Can he fill in occasionally in that role? Maybe, but I don't think that helps him or the team. And so if that's the case, you probably want to try to find somebody else, another big on the open market. So I think it's a good point by you to say that they're probably trying to wait a little bit to see what shakes free, because someone invariably will become available closer to training camp. And we see this all the time with a lot of vets where they remain unsigned and kind of on the cusp on their NBA careers. Like, I mean, we could very realistically, you mentioned Westbrook. I don't know that any teams really champing at the bit to try and add him to their roster now. He doesn't seem like he fits any kind of need. And so I don't know that a lot of teams want to necessarily deal with the whole.
He was the leader at even for Sacramento last year, right? Like that already happened to him. So we'll see a number of players probably be available closer to August after summer league is over and everything else like that. And I think you're spot on. The order of operations, as we've put it before, is try to add LeBron, because that does necessarily, again, shores up a lot of the holes in this roster. Gives you another key player, and then from there you'll find another two guard. You'll find another point guard backup. You'll find somebody else that's another big that becomes available at some point between now and the time training camp opens up. LeBron is worth waiting for, right? In other words, and that's
Absolutely.
what they're doing. Thanks so much for tuning in today to Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Heat so you get all of the latest episodes.